Good morning guys, Stealth here. I'm gonna be revisiting Busan Pocket because we have had quite a few new players into the game and some of you have requested that I revisit the campaigns. So let's see how fast I can beat Busan Pocket this time around. I'm gonna be as aggressive as possible. I think that since I did the campaign, or since I did the coverage of the campaign the first time around, I have possibly about 600 hours more of Red Dragon under my belt, so that should make a difference in as far as I'm going to be using tactics for this map or this mission. Now, of course, I'm going to skip through all the tutorial stuff or the notification that you're getting. Let's start distributing my forces quickly, blah blah blah, I need to hold this zone, etc. End objective is to control all of those turns to make sure that the South Korean peninsula is just completely under our control again. And unfortunately I cannot return fire. I cannot push these guys out, although I would really like to. Okay, first up, I want to know what's out here. I'm going to be facing T-55 recon tanks, Type 63s, all very low armor vehicles. It's going to be a bit of infantry, especially cheap Bangangzus, not really anything I should be worried about, and some Koksan long-range artillery pieces. These things I would like to kill off quickly because they're worth 100 points each. I'm going to be doing that on Yuichang, which is a very open map, so fast units is going to be an advantage. I would prefer to have tanks here or attack helicopters. Up here, this is Daegu. I got a bit of infantry, mostly Yebigoons, which are just reservists, militia. Got Sochong Su-85s with merely KM-900s, so they're not really the transports that I would like to have. A couple of recoilless rifles and a bit of recon infantry, combined with some sport vehicles in the sense of MLRS. And the map type is going to be very urban. This is a major town, and they're going to be coming in from Jiuchang, so I need to be able to hold these buildings here, these buildings there and there. Although pushing them back is going to be difficult, because what we're facing here is infantry, and a lot of it. Mostly 40 Bongongsus with their VT-323 transports. Good thing is they do not have a lot of AA in this battle group, but they do have, I believe, a bit of Shilkas, which could be annoying, as well as those 57s. These things could pose a threat to helicopters. And again, some Tokchong long-range artillery support units, as well as F5s, which are napalm bombers. I'm going to shoot these things down. Finally, we got Yongjok up here, and this is another very open map. I got moderately advanced tanks in the form of K1s. M48A5s are not really my choice here, or not my ideal choice. And the good news is that I can decide when I'm going to engage, because these tanks only have 2 initiative points, so they have to move and then wait a turn before they can actually attack. They also got an air wing here, Su-25K. These things could pose a major threat to my tanks, so I need to get some AA up here. Now the units that I have is a supporting battle group here. This is a logistics company which carries a couple of cargoes and a fob. The units that I would like to resupply here, which is in Daegu, that's that infantry map, I would like to put a fob in Bravo to make sure all my units can keep being resupplied and keep firing. I don't really need a resupply unit up here. I got a bit of cargoes, but I'm going to suppose my K1s combined with some attack choppers can easily turn those Chonmahos back into, which is this Uljin, the sector that they came from. So I'm going to dispatch these logistics company units over here. More K1s here. I'm going to send all of these K1s north. I want this to turn into one major tank battle. Thing is, I only got 2 reconnaissance vehicles here. So that is a bit of an issue, and I still don't have any AA. What I do have is long-range anti-air fighters in the form of the KF-16C as well as the Peace Bridges. I'm going to send those north and provide a bit of a supporting force. Now unfortunately, neither of these battle groups have any initiative points, because otherwise I would like to put them on R&R to get a bit of cohesion back, and that gives me more starting points. Other units that I have here are sabers. Now sabers are pretty terrible against tanks, so that rules out Yongjok. I could send them into Yuchang to deal with some of these transports, and considering that they barely have any AA, this is the zone where they're going to be most useful. So those are going to the west. Leaves me with a couple of Peace Pheasant 2s, and these are anti-tank units. So they can also be quite handy in either the open zone here, where I'm going to be facing tanks, and my tanks here are a bit inferior with M48 A5s, or I can send them to the other open zone. The K1s here should have that covered, so I'm not worried. I'm going to send those west. Leaves me with my close recon company. Now I got a little bit on the low end as far as recon vehicles go here. Only the 6616 and I only got 2 of those. Daegu doesn't really need any recon because the moment we're in contact with the enemy we're going to be able to fire at them as well. So I don't really have any standoff weapons that need support there. And that really only leaves me with this sector where recon could be vital to make sure that my airstrikes can actually go through. And these battle groups don't have any recon at all, so that's where I'm going to send those. Leaves me with a group of a special aviation regiment. It's a bunch of SEALs, a couple of attack choppers here, 2 helicopters, IG-1J or AH-1Js. Now these guys combined can take on tanks and infantry. The question is, what would you like to kill first? The main pressure is going to be on Daegu, and I still have a couple of battle points or reinforcement points that I can spend here to get more battle groups in. So I don't really need to send them out there just yet. They would be very useful out here to make sure that I can engage all of the tanks that are operating in the open. And I believe the only AA units that they have are Strela 2s. The thing is, I don't really have a lot of supplies. They do get 16 resupplied Chinooks, so that should be enough to keep these guys firing. And of course, I can always redistribute them after. Now that gives me 30 points. The thing that I still could use is more anti-tanks or a faster strike company here in Daegu so that I can actually counterattack, because right now counterattacking is not really in the cards. You could go with air support. You could go with a strike squadron of Peace Pheasant 1s. These Peace Pheasant 1s carry a lot of 227 kilogram bombs, and they can thin out whatever is in this infantry group really quickly. The problem are those Shilkas. They won't damage the planes as bad. They probably won't be able to kill them off, but I have to be a bit careful. So I'm considering bringing in an attack helicopter company to make sure I have more rocket pods in this area so I can kill off the infantry faster. It might also allow me to flank around and engage the Tokchons. So that's the battle group I'm going to bring in here. Let's send these guys up north. And then let's see, I got anti-air company. I don't really need that, not just yet. Artillery company. I'm usually way too fast to bring in artillery. These guys are usually quite easy to beat, so I'm not going to bother with that. I can bring in a logistics company, which gives me 2 FOBs and 16 cargo trucks. That could be useful over here to resupply and rearm my tanks, and especially to repair them, because they will be taking some damage from the tanks that are out there. Really, that are, as far as I'm concerned, the only options. I could go with the F5A strike squadron with napalm bombs. Those would only really be useful in Daegu. Don't really need them there. Yuchang has plenty of air support, so for now I'm going to go with a logistics company and make sure I don't lose any of my tanks there. So that's the battle distribution. Let's end the turn. And here we go. First up is Daegu, infantry warfare. Always have a look at what you have and what they have. Now you're going to see that both sides have a lot of infantry. They have 56 units they can call in, I have 84. That's a lot of Sochang-sus, which are going to be holding the line. I got Gongbyungs, which are napalm troops, as well as recoilless rifle troops. Income-wise, we're virtually the same. I have +5, they have +5, mainly from cohesion. So that's the base income that you're always going to have. The advantage that I have is numbers as well as zones. If I can hold Yuchang, Bravo and Yongdeok, I can get myself another income of +8 per second. That's going to be vital, because with that point value, I can start to call in, say, long-range supports. I can call in the choppers. Busan is not really vital because it doesn't really give me anything. It does give me an air route, but I already have 2 of those, and I don't really want to waste 100 points there to maintain control of that zone. Especially since I only have 5 command units, I have to be a bit careful there. Now, other units I can expect here are ZSU 57s, planes, as well as Shilkas and mortars. Apparently they did not bring their artillery units, so I don't have to worry about those as much. But what I want to try to do is start hunting down command vehicles. So I'm going to deploy some attack helicopters along the flanks there, try to push north and then east, and try and hunt down either mortars or the command vehicles themselves. So let's have it. Okay, I got 1,000 points, which is a major amount. I'm going to deploy my fob back there to make sure I can resupply my helos after they have expended their munitions. Holding these zones is going to be vital, and they might take a lot of fire. So what I'm going to do here is deploy units that have at least a bit of range, like the recoilless rifles with a 1400 meter range. And deploy a couple there, and the moment that they start crossing this bridge, I want to have these buildings locked down with standard infantry. So we're going to take 2 groups there. Yebiguns I'm going to be holding in reserve. That's their main purpose for me, because Sochung-sus are just going to be that much more effective. I also want to bring in a couple of stingers to make sure that if those F5s do appear, I can shoot them down. And I'm going to be doing the same thing on this flank. Usually they come across this bridge or that one. They usually don't make it across there, because I'm also going to deploy reinforcements on that flank. But this is a decent position to hold. Now, to make sure I can actually resupply the guys, I'm going to put a fob down there. It's a pretty risky position for a fob, but especially with attack helos and possibly napalm units, I can definitely hold that zone. I'm going to hide my command vehicle behind these buildings to make sure it's not going to be easily spotted. Let's put another command vehicle here in Yongjok. And already have a command vehicle there. And as mentioned, I don't really need to capture Busan, not just yet. It's not a vital zone. What could happen is that they're going to come across this bridge and then this road, which means I have to put a bit of infantry in there and a bit of infantry in there. So I'm going to put a sort of holding force there, consisting of a bunch of Yebiguns. And we're going to deploy 2 groups of Sochung-sus here in the north. Leaves me with 370 points. And with that I can deploy a small assault group of my own. So with that, let's go with a couple of AH-1Js. And I'm going to go with the AH-1Js because I don't really need the ITOs. They take quite a long time to resupply, and with the rocket pods I should have plenty of firepower. Leaves me with another 105. What I can do is deploy one of these to make sure I have a bit of longer range fire support, and they're going to be resupplied by that fob. Now I know having 2 fobs may be a bit much for some people, but I like having the flexibility of not having to pay attention to that zone as I'm pushing up with these guys. And again, my objective, hold these zones, make sure the attack group flies around, kills off any mortars or support units, and tries to take out the command vehicle, which I'm expecting either there or there. Let's make some war. Always get your transports out of here, except for your CV, which shouldn't have moved. Those guys moving there. Now, I have stated once that if you lose a command unit, or if you lose a transport, you're likely to use a command unit as well. I'm not sure how much that holds true, because some people have said, well, that's not actually the case. It doesn't actually work that way. So I'm not 100% on that. Interestingly enough, they're pushing right around the town, and they're going to go right up against my helicopter force. So I'm going to force one group here to attack and thin out a lot of these transports. You can see that they're all over the place. So I'm going to also bring in more AH-1Js as soon as I have the points to do it. And we're already getting engaged here. AH-1Js, weapons free, push up slightly. And the second group can move in. I can see those things are just neutralizing the infantry transports real quick. That's exactly what I want them to do. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a minimum range there, but there seems to be mortars out there, so that's going to be a target. And I think I'm taking napalm strikes there, so I'm pushing back a little bit. Let's bring in some reservists, because even reservists in buildings are nice to have. A couple of ZSUs here, and there is a CV nearby. That would be a prime target for me. Trying to get those guys. Now my attack healers are empty. So let's get the other group in. And start pulling these guys out to make sure I can actually sustain my engagement here. You can see my artillery is now striking this position. I'm going to bet that there's not a lot of infantry to support that section. And that should make sure that I can hold this zone. They also seem to be bringing in a command vehicle right on my doorstep. It's just something I don't really like. So let's bring in a command or a recon vehicle there, an attack chopper. And apparently they did have some command or some AA units here. Yep, AA missiles there. Get these guys repaired. They have neutralized my infantry at the front side here. So I'm gonna have to go with a bit more aggressive units here. And they also seem to slowly but steadily whittle down my helicopters here. You can see this is just a war of attrition. Who can deliver the most damage in the shortest amount of time? Let's see, that command vehicle's dead. Let's go around the other flank and hope that they don't have any AA there. Because I really lost at least one attack helicopter and a recon. You can see just how fast these things rearm. These just landed, they're already done. Bit of napalm to keep these guys at bay as my H1Ss are engaging these transports. And I'm going to bring in some infantry there later on, but I don't find that a priority. We've got 70% of the points that we need. We did lose a napalm unit there. I'm going to try and neutralize as many of those command vehicles or transports as possible. And there is another major target. Good thing that this AH-1S has tow missiles, because those can actually engage them at a longer range. And it would be nice if those tanks would actually hit anything. Yep, got a command vehicle, and I saw a command vehicle escape here up in the north. So that's going to be the new prime target. Got it. And that, I think, killed off all the command vehicles. I did lose a couple of recon birds. Yeah, the last enemy command vehicle on the battlefield has been destroyed. I killed off 4 of those command vehicles. Then I only got 2 left. The moment that you destroy a battle group's command vehicle, it can no longer attack on its own, because it cannot hold a single zone, and if you make sure they cannot hold a single zone, you're winning by default. Kills, almost 3,000. Losses, 300. So I got a kill-death ratio of 10 times as much. I did lose some critical units. Lost 3 recon helicopters, which is a lot more than I was hoping for. 2 attack helicopters, H-1Js, 2 napalm units and 2 infantry, and that's it. So I'm happy with this result. And that's them running. Next up is these zones, and they cannot attack on their own. This battle group can, the infantry battalion, but these guys cannot attack on their own because they don't have the initiative to attack yet. Now, these aircraft are pulling back because they don't have any orders currently. So again, let's see, this was a bit of infantry, I believe. but my tanks should be able to take care of that. Might be better to send the strike craft, the Pheasant 2s. Actually, the Pheasant 2s were... Yeah, might as well. Stick to the plan. And we're going to send the sabers up here next time to make sure that I have a bit of support against the infantry. Although you can see that these exclamation marks mean that these battle groups are fleeing. They're going to take at least one turn to recover, which also grants me a turn to recover. In which time I can bring them back here, rearm, repair, resupply, etc. So, Young Diok. What I have here is a bunch of tanks, 36 tanks. Mainly the K1s, that's the most important battle group for me. I got Busan. I don't really need Daegu because it doesn't give me any points or any aircraft reinforcement zones. We're going to be facing off against 56 Chanmaho tanks. And the one thing I'm missing here is my aircraft. So I'm going to cancel the battle and make sure I have my fighter squadron in here. Otherwise, those Su-25Ks can just run rampant and they can just completely obliterate anything that I have in this zone. Now, they have Chanmaho 2 tanks at best. These things have 16 armor penetration, can fire at a range of 2100 and have 8 frontal armor. My K1s have 17 frontal armor, so they can fire at a greater range, and even if they're engaged at maximum range, the rounds will just bounce off of these tanks. As well as having 16 armor penetration, so they can two-shot these tanks and almost one-shot these. Depending on the range, of course, but the Chanmaho base tanks I am absolutely not worried about. Another good thing is that they barely have any recon, but I'm pretty much in the same position with my only 2 Fiats, so I'm going to have to be a bit careful, only hold Busan, and I'm going to try and force my way into this tree line to make sure I have a bit of coverage over that field. Now I do have a FOB. I'm going to deploy that to make sure I have resupplies for my tanks, and I'm going to deploy that as far forward as possible because I know I can beat these guys quite easily. I'm going to deploy my K1s in duos. This way I'm going to have enough of them, and if one of them gets damaged, the other one can sort of escort it back. Let's bring in a Fiat 6616 Recce, as well as go with a KF-16C because they have longer range missiles than the Peace Bridge. Gives me 40 points, and I got a +4 income from Busan, so I'm going to be fine here. Let's push up with these tanks. One there, one there, one there, whoops, and one battle group there. Fiat 6616 to move up, but I want to have it without its weapons. If this thing opens fire, it's easy pickings for the enemy tanks, and I don't want to give them that advantage. Now currently they have quite a lead point, or quite a lead, of 1500 versus 1200, but we're going to change that right quick. Got a command vehicle there, and they're already dropping tanks, but they have a lot of these things. So my K1s are going to have their work cut out for them. And you can see that they're already dropping tanks rather quickly, and especially since these tanks don't have any recon vehicles to accompany them, you can just pick them off one by one by one. And unfortunately the Su-25 managed to get one kill here, and F-16, KF-16C might get it. No, it does not have the short range missiles to do it. But I only lost one tank and I suddenly pulled the score back. So let's bring in another buddy tank for that one. I'm also trying to level up these tanks, get them veteran, and that should help out with the amount of damage and accuracy that they have. You can see we're dropping these guys all around. This is slightly annoying here, so I'm going to deploy another K1 to that flank, because I don't want them to see that Fiat Recce tank or Recce vehicle. They're actually starting to return fire, and you can see that they only took 1 damage there. So long as these things don't get up in my face, the K1s really shouldn't be worried. Let's see, we're going to redirect that tank towards the east, because I'm a bit worried about those Chanmahos flanking my recon. can't have that because I only have 2 recon vehicles. Now this one has been upfitted, and throughout the campaign they're going to remember that veterancy, as it were. They're going to maintain that veterancy level, and that is a major advantage because it means that I can start deploying elite tanks sooner or later. You can see just how accurate these things are. 90% accuracy, 87 on these things because they're engaging at long range, 99, and I currently have 70% of the points already. These things are just going to lose by losing too many points. This is going to be one short battle. Now, some of these have taken a bit of damage, but only 3 blocks of health, so I'm not worried. What I'm going to try to do is a bit silly, but it might just work. I'm going to try to do a gun run on their command vehicle. These things don't have a lot of armor, and maybe... Oh, hang on. A wild Su-25K appears, which gets shot down. I'm going to try to do a gun run and try to destroy the command vehicle that way. I think I'm going to need a lot more of those. Okay, time to counterattack here. This is not the best or the most traditional way of using fighters, but if you have absolutely no challenging units, no challenging AA, you can just fly in and try to do as much damage to vehicles by just strafing them as possible. Meanwhile, I'm going to push up with my K1s and destroy some more tanks here. Hopefully enough that I can get the point value down in a minute or two. Probably less. And this is just one big slaughter. This takes, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely no skill. It's just putting your tanks in a decent position, and once you've done that, they're just picking them off. And there you go. Now, I did lose 1K1, that's a bit unfortunate, but they lost 1600 points versus my 85. So that's a 20 times markup. And you can see that I destroyed all of their Chonmaho base tanks, and they only got 9 Chonmaho 2 tanks left in that battle group. So they are pretty much eviscerated. That's that battle group done. And you can see they're also running. This battle group doesn't have a command vehicle, so it cannot attack autonomously. Leaves me with Yue Chang, and I can also, if I want to, send these battle groups to reinforce. And that way you can start sweeping these zones. So considering that these guys are not going to attack, these might. I'm not that worried about pulling units off the line, but instead I'm going to have them on R&R, which gives them a cohesion bonus. And the cohesion bonus will mean more starting points next battle. What I will do is pull these attack helicopters back to make sure I can refit them. I have the points to do that, and unfortunately refitting can only be done if you have a full group, I believe, or if it's the start of the round. If they moved, I don't think you can refit them, and that means that I cannot resupply these guys right away. But I don't really need them here right now, so I'm just going to keep them here, and the units that are not going to move are going to be on R&R. Leaves me with Yue Chang. Quite a lot of zones here again. My units are infantry, and a lot of them. My tanks are going to be my main weapon here, combined with my attack helicopters, the 1Js and the Itos, as well as some Peace Pheasants, but these things are slightly overkill if you're engaging T-55 recon tanks with only 7 armor. The main thing that they could be spamming are tanks and infantry vehicles, infantry transports, but again, the only AA that they have is Strela 2, as well as some of these guys. These you need to be wary of. The Hwasung Chongs are dangerous transports because they also carry AA missiles. Yes, they're short range, but in larger numbers they could be really annoying. Now again, pick your zones strategically. Busan gives me an advantage Daegu does not really give me an advantage, and so long as I hold Jiuchang up here in the front lines, I can bring in resupplies directly to the front, or even to the flank of them. So I'm not going to spend a CV on Daegu, it's not worth it. What I will spend CVs on is holding Delta, and I'm going to defend that a little bit with a couple of tanks. Let's take the most advanced guys we can get, these M48s. Add a reconnaissance vehicle, just a passive K111. Up here, Jiuchang, I want to have that secured by another infantry command, because those are harder to destroy or harder to find. I can group up some infantry here, and I'm going to do that to make sure that they are not going to capture this town on me. I could pick this position, but my infantry doesn't have the range to engage either side, so these positions are much more important. Stingers, to make sure that they don't attack with aircraft. I forgot if they had any, but I don't think so. And I could put my recon infantry up there and get ready with a couple of tow helicopters to engage them up front. And unfortunately I can only spawn these right above these buildings, so let's do that. Never attack with two groups of ITOs at the same time, by the way. If you do so, you're going to find yourself wasting missiles, which is just a bad use of your supplies. I'm going to deploy a couple of 47Ds here as a resupply zone. This is a sort of makeshift fob, because I don't really have an actual fob at this stage. Let's go with a peace pheasant and start the battle. Offload command vehicle. Offload command vehicle there. Get the helo out of there. Offload the recon. Get the recon transport out. And there they are. Lots and lots and lots of units. You can see they're being engaged right away. And my peace fence is now taking fire from those Hwasung Chongs, which I was so concerned about. Now I can bring in tanks, but they got a lot of vehicles here. Questioningly though, I don't think that any of them are tanks. So what I'm going to try to do is bring in a couple of vehicles of my own as soon as I can bring in full squads. And of course now I'm doing exactly what I told you guys not to do, which is engage with multiple helicopters at the same time. Killed off quite some vehicles there. And maybe that missile will hit something as well. Yep, got another Susangpo. So let's bring in a couple of M48s, try to get all of those coxswains as well as these transports out of the way. You can see that they might be, yeah, they're doing an amphibious landing here. Unfortunately, these are not the fastest tanks off-road, only 50. They have an accuracy of 45, which is not great, but it works. And, oh, they're coming across this bridge as well. Or trying to. Now this is a bit worrying. There's a lot of autocannons or machine guns engaging that position. So time to have these guys open up. Killed off infantry due to the main damage that you're doing here. And again, this is just turning into one big slaughter. Simply because they don't have anything that can really stand up to these South Korean units. Now I'm going to spend my points mainly on bringing in support units here, like for example a couple of Hellcats. M36s are, sorry, they're not the Hellcats, they're something similar. I forgot what the actual name of them was. These things have taken some fire. Let's see, they are also pushing with a bit of infantry, so let's relocate this battle group. Get the Stingers out of there. And unfortunately they got my recon infantry there, which I don't have that many of. Peace Bridge being horribly inaccurate, but scoring a 100-point kill there. And you can see that these things don't have a stabilizer. I have to park them in order to get them firing at something. Now even the command infantry is being engaged here, so I have to be slightly careful. And make sure that they don't kill off the command infantry here. Unfortunately, they managed to take out one M48, but still not really worried about that. Send in fast air support here. Might as well buy another one. Get these guys veterancy. There you go, killed off another coxswain. And another one. And that's the points. So really, these early battles are nothing special. I killed off their only command vehicle. That's the one from the infantry battalion. The tank battalion does have one command tank, which are slightly harder to kill. And let's see, I killed off 1400 points and lost 80. That's 2 tanks of the M48A3 type, so that's the cheaper tanks. The M48A5s are slightly better. And I lost 1 recon infantry. I don't mind the tanks, I do mind the infantry. I would have loved to kept that, but so be it. And look at that, even my command infantry managed to kill off some infantry groups. So that's it for the first episode of Busan Pocket Revisited. I hope you like it. If you do, subscribe, and I'll be having up a playlist with these videos to make it a lot more accessible for you guys. I'm going through these things pretty quickly because they're rather easy for me, and I'm going to try to be as aggressive as possible. And personally, I would have loved to have another battle group or a fast attack helicopter group strike these guys now. Unfortunately, you cannot engage any of the dashed off zones, so if I could have taken out this battle group and destroyed all of these because they cannot flee or counterattack. But that's something for another episode, as they're going to come back into my zones. So again, hope you liked watching it. If you did, hit like. If you're not subscribed yet, join the subscriber list, because I will be uploading one of these every day for the upcoming few days, to make sure you have one episode of these and you can enjoy a bit of Busan Pocket. Thanks for watching. I'll be seeing you next time.